What's up, everybody? I'm Avatage, and welcome to another episode of the HLTB podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Paula.
Hello.
Today we are going to do our regular what we've been playing, what we've beaten. We haven't retired anything, so another win this week. No retirements needed. Then we're going to have a discussion about the current game of the month, which is a bit of a big one, being Half-Life. And we're going to have another go at our guessing game. See if I can even up the scores a little.
A little bit.
Finishing it off, yeah. I got to try before we get to the end, and we end up picking games for each other to play.
It's going to be interesting because you may remember from, I don't know when we said it, but the winner gets to pick a game for us to play, but it has to have like the average time. It has to be like same or lower than the amount of points the winner got.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to my first major otome.
I don't know, like 16 hours is not a lot.
True.
I don't know if I know a game that game that has that average time. Like, it has to be a game that has been played a lot, like for one route only.
Yeah.
And few people like 100% it, and that's my only hope.
Well, we shall see. Maybe the tables will turn, but I don't like my chances that much. But anyway, let's talk about the games we've beaten. And I see that you have beaten a few this week, Paula. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, after the drop of, I think, 3 weeks or so, I finally beat a couple of games. First of all, the Warcraft Archipelago campaign I was playing, it took me the grand total of, I think, 7 hours and a half.
Nice.
And to be honest, I was like ready for the last level of the game like a while ago, like last week. But whoever had the one thing that I was missing to be able to play the final level, which if I remember correctly, was like the final walls or the final bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they hadn't like unlocked it yet, so I was just there sitting and waiting.
Nice.
And the thing about the Archipelago campaign is that you can play most levels without having like the requirements, but you cannot finish most levels without having the requirements. So for the final level, you had to have a specific item weapon. I don't remember the name of it. Plus the final walls and the final bridges. So if you have those at the beginning of the level, the walls will that are blocking your way will crumble, and the bridges will rise, allowing you to cross the river in the middle of a map. And the item is pretty much mandatory to finish the game. I have to say, it was very, very challenging, the final level. Like, most levels in the Warcraft Archipelago campaign were either like easy or medium difficulty. Like, you could beat it like in a try or two if you fucked up along the way. But this one took me like 5 or 6 attempts.
Wow.
So especially like at the very, very beginning of the level, you almost have to like make like very specific decisions for you to be able to survive the rest of the map, and then you have to pretty much like take down the enemy fortress. So yeah, it was a very fun adventure. Also a very fun adventure to have with friends because each of us were playing a different game. I think most of us but one are finished with their adventures, so
cool.
We call that a collective win.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other game that I finished is Virte Vemor, or Tuem no Virte, Error Salvation for Nintendo Switch. And I only had like 2 endings left, the Lucas Salvation ending and Eve the Salvation ending. And I have to say, what happened with Lucas Salvation ending? Like, I get we have like a serial killer at large in this route, Like, couldn't you give the man like a happy-ish ending? I kind of like want to just go and say what happens, but I'm not gonna say just what happens. But all that I'm gonna say, all the suffering on his road was not worth the ending he got. And also, I'm very curious on what the fuck do they do for the fan disc,
Right.
because I see no way for this to get any better in the fan disc. I think they have to do some bullshittery to give him like a proper thing. Though I read a review on the fan disc, which by the way is not available in English yet. Like Axis hadn't even like come out of the woodworks and said, "Hey, we're localizing this and this and these games for next year." We have had radio silence from those fuckers the entire like second half of the year, and we are worried about it. But we trust we're gonna have at the very least like something good to show. Like they're gonna show up with something that, oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Virtue Evermore, Virtue Epic Licorice, the reviewers that I read, that one of them was Redmaster Lee, and the other one I didn't quite catch the name of the website, but both of them like agreed on that. Luca and Matthews got the churn of the stick on the fan material, while others I see and got like a lot of fun stuff to work with. Though they're pretty happy with the main reason they bought the fan disc, which is Anko. So yeah. Anyway, on the other hand, Eva's salvation ending, which is called Evermore, is kind of bittersweet. Like it qualifies in my book as a happy ending, but it has some bittersweet note to it. So again, I'm not sure what they're gonna do. So, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, I enjoyed like story wise or narrative wise.
Yeah.
I really, really, really enjoyed the Les Salute route, Cian's route, and Matty's route. While the other two fell a little flatter for me in the sense of they could have been written a little bit better, or maybe like if it was okay-ish, but Lucas really got the short on street of the stick, like narrative wise. Like they had a very, very cool concept, but the flow of the route, and like I get the roller coaster of emotions instead of being like ups and downs near the end of the game was just down. you, you were just going to dark places at the end of that route. I think that diminishes like the impact that the ending could have had, or like they could have given him an actual good ending. I think Lucas was like, oops, all bad endings, but anyway. The character ratings for this game, or like the character ranking for this game for me, Cian sits very comfortably at the top of it. I would say Anko, followed by forget his name, Luca, followed by Adolf, followed by not Adolf, Yves, followed by Mathis, followed by Adolf. So yeah, those are my opinions on the game. I kind of like really want the fan disc to be localized, but I'm kind of scared because I hear like the art isn't like as pretty.
Right.
Like in this game, like Yomi was the main artist, and even though they are the main artists for the second game, the art doesn't really scream Yomi to me. So, sometimes in that regard.
That's a shame.
And the last game, that's a real shame because like the visual novels usually shine by the story, the characters, the art, and the music usually.
Yeah.
So having one of them like fall flat on its face is not that good at a thing.
Mm.
Still, I have to say the secondary characters alongside the main villains that are like mixing together were really, really well written, and I enjoyed them a lot. And though I want to slap some of them into oblivion, looking at you, Dr. Capucina. And so yeah, like if you are not bothered by the pseudoscience, which at when a specific point I was calling bullshit on it, and if you really like some dark, gritty game and are not bothered by the lack of happy endings for some of the characters, I would totally recommend the game.
Nice.
But yeah, it's not for someone who is easily affected by some of the topics of the game, such as suicide or attempted suicide, gore, a lot of it, mass murder, obsession with a child, the is there abuse? No, there's not abuse. I guess some maniac love interest who likes to give you in a cage. Some fans will be very happy with this one. Dismemberment. I mean that goes into gore, but okay. So yeah, there's a lot of like there isn't like graphic stuff in the sense of, hey, we show you an image with a character with his arm chopped off. No, you don't see it, but you read it.
Yeah.
In a very, sometimes in a very very descriptive way. So trigger warning for that one. Which I'm very surprised because I'm usually very squirmish about it. But since I didn't directly see it, I guess it didn't affect me as much. But I was still like, ooh, that hurts. So yeah.
Nice.
I still recommend the game, but be warned. So I have to give all these warnings so people don't think I'm selling things that don't exist in this world. So
cool.
So yeah, the last game I finished is Quarantine Circular, and if someone told me I only have like half an hour to beat the game left, or even less than that, I would have beaten this like a long, long time ago. So I think okay. So I played Quarantine Circular after playing Surface Circular. Oh my god, it's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
So the thing is that Quarantine Circular has so much more potential that Surface Circular ever did, but unlike its predecessor, it doesn't have that feeling of having to make a very difficult choice in a sense. Like in the previous game, you are faced with a very specific question at the end of it. And after hearing everyone talk about this specific thing, you're really thorn on which one should be like the quote unquote correct or like more morally correct choice for this.
Yeah.
In the case of Quarantine Circular, I don't think there's that level of different shades of gray. Like from the get-go, some characters are painted in a very negative or positive light, to the point that obviously will impact the choices you make and how much trust you want to give to this entity that has come to Earth. I don't know if I fucked up along the way. But at the end of the day, I have two choices that were virtually the same, that had virtually the same effect.
Right.
One was just being a bit more of an asshole than the other. But to be perfectly honest, I felt a little bit underwhelmed by it. because at the end of subsurface, oh my god, SSC, that I'm gonna call it that now.
Game 1.
At the end of game 1, I was very satisfied by the ending I got and the whole story. Well, here I was thinking, hey, maybe there's something lacking, like there's something missing. So yeah. So even though I feel this game had like more of like having more potential to be a very, very great thing, even surpassing its predecessor, I feel it fell flat in that regard. Don't get me wrong, it's still a good game, but I feel like it left many loose ties and it didn't like really answer a lot of things. And the ending was very like vaporous, I guess. Like it wasn't like a clear cut of what happened next.
Yeah, I remember thinking when I played this that even though they gave you options for dialogue and stuff, it felt like there really only was one option that was like the right option.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was a bit clear in that sense, so it wasn't nearly as ambiguous as the first game. But yeah, I still enjoyed it too. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I still enjoyed it. Though it's very funny how the first game has very ambiguous answers, but a very clear-cut ending.
Yeah.
Well, the second game has very clear-cut answers, but a very ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
So yeah, enough about me. What have you finished this week?
Well, not a whole heap, but some good stuff. As we've spoken about before, we have 12 days of itchmas that we've been doing as part of the HLTB community. And for anyone who's not aware, that's where we voted on 12 games to play during the first 12 or so days of December. That's just, something to do around the end of the year, which is a bit of fun, and try out some new games that we might not otherwise have played. And yeah, so I played a few more of those. And the first one was one that I actually nominated called the Anglerfish Project. And I really enjoyed this. Other people seem to not have enjoyed it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed it. It was probably my favorite game that I've played over all 12, even though I think I played 9 games out of the 12 because there were 3 that I'm like, not my kind of thing. Well, there were some horror games and stuff like that I'm just like, I'm not interested in that. 2 of them I retired, which was, I think I spoke about Yoshi Goes to Tesco last week. And there was another one called Tinker Core. And that's basically, how people make like Game Boy games, but they make them now? It was one of those basically, like where it's a RPG, you play as a little robot thing. I played like 5 minutes of it and went, yeah, this isn't for me, and retired that as well. Good quality and everything, though. I could see why people would like it. But anyway, the Anglerfish Project is a small game, but a complete game where you basically play as an old man who's at the beginning, he's sitting on what seems to be a small kind of asteroidy, planetoidy type land. It's quite small. Like you can walk around it in like a minute or less. And he's sitting there and he's got fishing gear and he's got some snacks and some drinks and stuff. And you get communications from someone who's like guiding you or talking to you. And in the sky appears these anomalies, for want of a better word, which appear in different colors. So there's like blue ones and there's pink ones and there's red ones. And initially you start off trying to catch the blue ones. So you kind of aim your fishing rod and throw it out into space towards this kind of blue circle. And it's like a probe. Okay. And but you're kind of throwing like a probe into that area. And then you do a little mini game where you have to like, I forget how it goes exactly, but you basically have to click in time with stuff to then get the best probe reading. And every time you do that, you basically get more information that is provided to you by the person who's talking to you and communicating with you. But then you eventually start finding these anomalies, which are different colors, like the pink and the red ones, where they're kind of unstable. And you start probing them with your fishing rod, and you get messages saying, stop doing that, you're messing everything up, blah, 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 blah. And therein lies the choice of the game, where you can either choose to stop doing that and just go have a rest, sit down in your chair and watch the sky, or you can keep poking at these anomalies and eventually you get to the ending, which is what I did. And I don't want to spoil it, but basically, yeah, you get to an ending, which I found really nice and really satisfying. And I really liked the way the abstract story kind of wrapped up, because it is a weird game. You're like, you know, a guy on an asteroid probing weird anomalies with your fishing rod. It's not to be taken too literally, I think. But I really enjoyed it. And I really liked the mood that it set, because it was very good with ambience and the atmosphere, because the minimal soundtrack that it had kind of really set a nice kind of lonely mood. And the interactions that you have with your person who's talking to you kind of also makes you feel like, reminds you that you're alone and you're doing this on your own. And, you know, it's very much a lonely kind of themed game that I quite enjoyed. So another game that I played, which was from the Itchmas games, was one called Feather Park, which if you liked, what's it called? A Short Hike, you might like this one. It's a similar graphic style and it feels nice and cozy in the same sort of way. It's very short and it's basically you play as a bird of some sort. I don't know if you're a particular type of bird, but you're a little fat bird. And you basically just cruise around this relatively small map and do a bunch of mini games with other people and or creatures who are there. Such as one of the games is you go into a field, an empty field where there's a scarecrow, and you kind of interact with the scarecrow, and you basically have to survive while the scarecrow does a whole bunch of like boss attacks at you by like bringing lightning down on the ground, so you got to avoid the lightning, and then does like a bullet hell pattern that you have to kind of just move with to avoid it. And you do all that, and eventually once you've done it enough times, the scarecrow's like, hey, that's good, you win. And you move on to the next one. And once you've done them all, you then get to go into the barn and you finish the game. And it's very, very quick and very, very easy. I liked it though. I thought it was really good, but it would have been nice if it was a little bit more challenging and a little bit more, had a bit more depth, I suppose, because it was kind of hard to see what the point of it all was, other than just a light little, you know, distraction. That was Feather Park anyway. And the last Itchmas one that I played was Chalk Gardens, which was kind of like a top-down RPG style game, but I actually liked it more than I would usually like top-down RPG style games, because there were no battles, there was no random battles or anything. It was purely an exploration kind of game with, I guess, light puzzling, perhaps, because you had to find things to unlock things and then maybe find other things to try it again in a different way and unlock something else, and find different characters and things around the map. And the whole thing is obviously hand-drawn, because the style is like it's like a child's drawn, the whole thing, which is kind of nice in a way. But what I didn't like about the art was it ended up being difficult to know what would have collision and what wouldn't, because you'd essentially go from one area to the next, to the next, to the next kind of thing. And each area had a bunch of stuff in that area, whatever it was themed by. So like one of them had a bunch of tables and chairs and stuff, like it's a cafe. And it wasn't very clear when for me anyway, it didn't make sense when you'd actually hit the table and not be able to go past it, or when you are far enough away that you'd just swing by and not be blocked. And yeah, it didn't make a lot of visual sense to me, but that could just be me. Maybe I'm just a bit stupid for that game, but you know, it was nice enough. It was kind of a bit of a mid-range game though for me, as far as, yeah, it was fine. I could see what they were trying to do, but it didn't really excite me that much. But it was well put together, and I can see why it would excite maybe someone else who likes that kind of thing more than I do. So yeah, that was Chalk Gardens. My top games that we played, just now that we played them all, were the Anglerfish project, which I just spoke about, and Lookouts, which I spoke about either last time or a couple of times ago, which was the visual novel about cowboys falling in love, basically.
I still need to play that one.
And, you know, I say it with a caveat as well, because seeing what other people have been into, that's part of the fun of itchmas, is you all play the same games, and then you kind of see where you agree and disagree with everyone else and how your tastes differ and that sort of stuff. And I don't think anyone has enjoyed those two games in particular as much as I did. So that may say something. So, your mileage may vary, but I really enjoyed those two anyway. I think they were very... one thing with itchmas games that we often do, because we choose short free games, they can be very simple or undercooked, or like they can be game jam games, or they can just be prototypes for other games. And that's all cool. Like one of the ones we played, Sound Marine, that was definitely more of a prototype feel. Like it was very short. It kind of showed you what it was about, and then it just ended. So, that definitely felt like an undercooked experience, but it was a cool concept to kind of check out and go, oh, that's a nice idea. So maybe they'll do something with it in the future. But that's kind of the idea of doing itchmas anyway, is to try these things out. But having said that, the Anglerfish project and Lookouts, which I both really enjoyed, felt like complete games within themselves. Like they were finished, polished kind of experiences. Both relatively short, but that's okay. I don't mind a short game. And yeah, they were interesting and a little bit different. So that's what I got excited about out of all those. The only other game that I finished, which has been kind of a while in the making, is I finished off Wallace and Gromit's Grand Adventures because I played episode 4. I've previously played the first 3 episodes, and I played and finished episode 4 just today, actually, because they're quite short. They're only just under 2 hours each or something. But that was the last episode of the entire Grand Adventures, and it was just as good as the rest of it. If you're a Wallace and Gromit fan, you should definitely enjoy these games. I would recommend it. They're very good. I was looking at it during quote-unquote cutscenes, but, scenes of dialogue and stuff where you're just watching it. I was looking at the character models and things, especially of Gromit and Wallace themselves, and they've done a really good job of kind of representing the claymation aspect of Wallace and Gromit, where I noticed on Gromit there's it's like he's actually been made out of plasticine, because there's like fingerprint marks and things on his body where there would be if someone had made it. And I know that's a thing that like Aardman try to do as well. They try to leave imperfections like that because they like to show that, yeah, it has been made by people, and, fingerprints and things are okay. You just leave them there because it makes it look cool, makes it look real. And it's nice that they've included it in the game, because it could all just be smooth and shiny and, video gamey. But they've kind of made it look very claymation-y without it actually being claymation. So I really like that anyway. But yeah, the story this time was basically, without spoiling too much, basically Wallace has proposed to his neighbor mistakenly and wants to get out of it. So Gromit discovers that his neighbor who he's proposed to doesn't want to marry someone who's a member of this country club in town. So he kind of Gromit manipulates the situation enough so that Wallace ends up a member of the country club and ends up running the country club. And so, yeah, there's a lot of golf-related stuff, because it's basically a country club about they just like playing golf the whole time. But it's just as wacky and weird as the other Grand Adventure games, episodes, I should say. And yeah, it was just as much fun and just as enjoyable. So definitely worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. And yeah, a nice kind of... The one thing I guess that is a bit of a letdown of the whole thing is that as all 4 episodes together, they don't really have anything to kind of tie them together too much. They're very much individual episodes that kind of stand on their own. Whereas, as an entire package, it's not like it's one game. It's like it's 4 little games that kind of relate to each other because they take place in the same spot, and some things do carry over, but nothing so significant that it makes it feel like a complete game. But but that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just that would have made it better, I guess. So yeah, that's what I've completed since last time. And yeah, like I said at the top, we haven't retired anything. So hit us with what you've been playing.
Yeah, give me a second here. So, I started playing Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, which is the 3rd game of the first trilogy of the Ace Attorney series.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a replay. I think this is the third time I'm playing this game. And it has to do with the fact that the second trilogy, the Apollo Justice trilogy, that has, well, Apollo Justice, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice, is going to come out sometime in February, if I remember correctly. So I was like, hey, maybe I will just get this one out of the way, maybe play an investigation game or two, and then jump into the other trilogy just because of it. Because I really, really enjoy the Ace Attorney games, and having an excuse to replay them is always a good thing in my book.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who aren't aware or like don't really play the Ace Attorney games, well, in the first trilogy you play as Phoenix Wright, defense attorney, and you have to defend your client in court. The thing is that you're not only an attorney using to be a detective, because in between the court sessions, you have to investigate the scene of the crime and try to find any evidence that is useful for you to defend your client.
Yeah.
And, well, it gets more complicated than that in the later games, but that's the gist of it. So some of the games have a special gimmick. I think for the main trilogy, if I remember correctly, it is Maya's Magatama. So Maya is the sister of a Phoenix like tutor in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So they met in a particular case. And Maya has been like hanging around Phoenix ever since, like helping him out in these cases. So she's a spirit medium, and she has a magatama, and you can use this magatama. I don't remember if you can use it like on the first and second game, but the very least you can use it in the third game, where when you are interrogating people like outside of the courtroom, you can see if they're like hiding a specific thing when you question them.
Okay.
And the way you see this is that it almost appears like if a group of chains and locks appear in front of the person you're trying to interview. So what you have to do is present evidence in such a way that you start breaking down their locks, and then you're able to get to the bottom of the thing. Other games have different gimmicks. So, for example, in the investigation series, you have logic and logic chess. And logic chess in particular is one of my favorites because you have like a time limit on trying to bring down the testimony of someone and find flaws in it. In the case of Apollo Justice, you have the bracelet, which lets you see like when a certain person that is like testifying in court is lying, so you can like just try to gauge the reactions and try to take it from there. And as for Dual Destinies, Athena Sykes has the this little robot thing that allows you to almost like do a little therapy session with the person you're trying to interrogate before so they don't kind of like break down during court and actually tell you what the hell happened. Well, and Spirit of Justice has this very, very fucking crazy thing where you can actually see like some of the last things that happened to the victim before they died. Obviously, not you're never able to see the actual killer because that would be way too fucking easy.
True.
But each game managed to give it a twist in a way that keeps things fresh. So yeah, Trials and Tribulations is kind of like the more traditional like Ace Attorney experience, where at most you have the Maya's Makantama. And it's probably like my favorite game of the original trilogy because if I remember correctly, like all the cases in the first two games are more like not really related to one another. But in this game, I think it's like the first time they really tried to have an overarching story, or like a clear overarching story that ties everything together in a way. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that this game finally got out of 3DS hell. And it is, though I really love the DS and 3DS style the most because of the pixel art. It is now available like in everywhere but your refrigerator, and that includes Steam, PS4, and I think Xbox. And it is on Game Pass, so for anyone who is interested in trying it out, I 100% recommend starting, well, with the very first one, that is Fixed History, and that's the whole name of the game.
Yeah, I started playing the original trilogy ages ago, but I don't think I've gotten past the second game yet. But it's good, and yeah, I've been playing on Steam. So,
in my case, I'm on the second case of the third game, so that's where I'm at the moment. The other game that I've been playing, and this one is one that I don't remember the last time I was playing it, and I don't remember if I started on season 1, on season 2, or season 3 of the podcast, but I'm back at it, and it is Hatoful Boyfriend. So I stated many times in the past that in Hatoful Boyfriend you play as Hiyoko, a human girl in a academy built for pigeons. So shit happened, and pigeons now are sentient, can talk, and rule the world, and they are like pretty much as big as a normal human. So in this game, it is a charming game. All the love interests are feathery pigeons, and the thing is that it kind of like lets you on things behind the scenes a little bit on the earlier roads. So it's kind of like, hey, oh, funny, haha, funny pigeon game. But the more you play it, the more you realize that, hey, this is not fun. This is not the funny pigeon game anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reason it has pigeons and pigeons photos is that if I remember correctly, the person behind the game kind of like is not very fond of drawing. Like, I think they had a manga career previously to the game, but they were like, hey, fuck it, I'm not gonna draw it. Shit. So they have some pigeon stock pictures and I can just concentrate on the story of the game. And the intention kind of was like filtering the people who wanted to play the game for the haha pigeon factor.
Yeah.
And then like really pull in the people who are like more interested in the lore stuff. I am the second one, and also this is a replay. Do I need to say more? I don't think so. Oh yeah, I finished Angel Higuera's route. So this character is more of a kind of like a teeny view character, in the case that they had like they're like delirious and have like these dreams of grandeur and stuff like that, and they talk like in a very weird way and always making reference to like, I don't know, previous lives and shit like that.
Cool.
So they're kind of crazy. And I actually went and finished another route that was Okosan's route. So Okosan is like the closest thing to an Asian pigeon. They are still like human size, but he's kind of like not the smartest pigeon in the aviary, if you catch my drift. So they are like always like following their instincts more than anything. Like he's supposed to be like the captain of the track team, and you find him like eating all the supplements at some point, and he is like, "Hey, don't eat that. This is for the team. God damn it!" And they have like this obsession with pudding, and they are always looking for pudding. The pudding that they serve at the cafeteria and the convenience store is a disgrace. Though one of his endings, because I think this one has like two endings. in one of his endings, Pudding Odyssey, they actually like go and embark in a journey to try to find the Temple of Pudding. It turns out Okusan is the pudding god like reincarnated, and it is a very silly route.
Nice.
So yeah, I think with this, I'm mostly finished with the sillier routes. I'm more into like the cheaties getting real routes.
Yep.
So yeah, that's all that I've been playing. Josh, take it away.
Well, I played Had a Full Boyfriend a long time ago, and the one route I did play was definitely a shit's getting real route. And it was...
Oh, do you remember the bird associated with the route?
I remember there was like a big brown looking pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, things were not happy.
The one in the library?
Oh, I can't remember.
Or the one in the infirmary?
I remember there was a bit in the park which stood out to me.
Oh, yeah, it's probably that one. Yeah, I know which one it is.
I just remember it got kind of fucked up from where you
I
started.
don't know where, yeah.
And it was good fun, but yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll revisit it one day and try for a pudding route or something.
Maybe.
That could be fun. But yeah, anyway. Things I've been playing. Well, I caught up with my sister again, as I do. And she was... because she bought a PlayStation 5 after getting into certain PS5 games like Horizon and that sort of thing and Spider-Man. And she was saying to me, oh, we need to find some sort of Mario Kart analog to play. Because she's like... The only interest she has in like Nintendo stuff is to play Mario Kart with friends and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, there are others. So we ended up playing Team Sonic Racing because I had it in my library. I think it was like a monthly PlayStation Plus game years ago. Like many years ago, maybe even PlayStation 3 era or PlayStation 4 era. But because I had it, we thought, oh, well, let's play that. And yeah, it scratched the itch. I've played Sonic Racing before, but not with any kind of intent to do well. And this time I tried and I didn't do very well. And it was really good though, because it was a good game for us to play, because my sister, obviously, for anyone playing along, knows that she's new to gaming relatively. And she managed to beat me just as much as I managed to beat her in this game. So it was really down to just the luck of that race and how it panned out for us. We pretty much got beaten by the AI all the time, which was kind of annoying, but even on easy. But yeah, it was a good time, and definitely better than, because she'd originally downloaded, I think there's like a Disney kart game that came out not too long ago. That's a free to play game.
Really?
I hadn't heard of it until she told me about it, because she's like, oh, I was looking for a free one, and I tried this one out.
Disney Speedstorm, what the hell is that?
Well, I had a look at it because she had it on her PlayStation, and it's basically a gacha game, but a kart game. So
yeah,
to unlock new characters and stuff, you have to like grind your way to level them up and all that kind of thing, or you can buy microtransactions. But it's very much like any old gacha game where you unlock characters randomly from loot boxes and then level them up to make them any good and all that kind of stuff. So
pretty much Mario Kart Gotar for the mobile phone, but in Disney form.
Kind of. But the racing isn't even that good. Like, yeah. So then we played Team Sonic Racing, and because I looked through my library and I happened to have it, and yeah, that was way more of a Mario Kart analog than the Disney one. So, yeah.
Okay, can you respond something? Can you answer this one question?
Okay.
If Sonic is supposed to be faster than the speed of sound, why is he using a car for this?
Yeah, I don't know. You think most of the characters that are in this would be able to just run the race, but I guess it's for the fun of it because it's kart racing.
I guess it evens the field too, so anyway.
And I mean, it is Sonic as well, and I've never been a big Sonic player, so half the characters, I don't know who they are, because there's all the variations, like there's Knuckles and Tails and is it Wendy, the girl Sonic? And and there's like
what's her name? I don't remember what the pink Sonic.
There's like Dr. Robotnik and like a robot Dr. Robotnik, and there's like some alligator dude, and I don't know who half of them are anyway. But that's cool. It was a fun kart game. There's crazy courses, and you pick up items and you shoot them at each other, much like Mario Kart. So yeah, it was a good time. It might have been a bit more visually confusing than Mario Kart because some of the levels are like so dense with just stuff and colors, and you're going upside down and all around and all over the place that it actually gets quite confusing where you are and where you're going, especially when you're playing in split screen local because you've got less screen to look at. So that was a bit of a hindrance, but hey, we wanted to play a game without buying one, so it was good.
You can't beat free.
Yeah, there's a lot that I'll put up with if I don't have to pay for it. So, continued playing The Next World, which I've spoken about before. Got way more into it this time. I gave it a good few more hours of gameplay, and I'm very much enjoying it. My colony is somewhat thriving, and it's getting good. The story's like getting meaty. Initially, you have to expand your colony, and you do so by you've basically got a daily cycle, and every day you can assign things to happen. So you can say, okay, I want to build a farm module, let's say, where we can make our own food. But to do that, you have to assign one of your vehicles to work on that. And then you assign your other vehicle to perhaps go explore and look for resources that have crashed from your crashed ship, or just explore the landscape around you. And different things happen depending on what you do. So there's one part, though, that's kind of a story-based part where, again, I don't know if this is very spoilery because it feels like it's very choose your own adventure. So your playthrough may vary depending on how you do it and what you do. But I reached a point where I got told that I needed to go find the reactor from the ship. Otherwise, we're going to run out of power and everyone's going to die. So I'm like, okay, cool. Off we go. And you take a bunch of people with you, and you can choose kind of how many colonists you want to take with you and how much supplies you've got as well to take with you and what the risk is and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, as you go, things happen, people die, you come back with less people. Maybe it takes longer because of decisions you've made, or you actually find it the first time like I did. I happened to find what we were looking for on my first choice, so I was pretty happy about that, and brought it back to the camp, and then something goes wrong, and eventually a few days later the generator explodes, and then you find out, ooh, actually it's sabotage and someone's working against you. And
it's sabotage.
Yeah, and there's a good story reason for it. And the twist which I'm left at the moment, like I stopped playing after I found it out, and this is basically as spoilery as I'll get because it's kind of a fun twist, but you've crash landed on this planet that you don't know anything about. You've kind of cobbled together the survivors, and you've built a colony that's, functional enough to kind of look after itself at the moment, and we're growing our own food. We've sorted out our power problems. We can kind of survive for a little while on our own, but we're still kind of exploring and trying to pick up wreckage from the ship and that kind of thing. And then we discover that we've been sabotaged, and we go and investigate it, and we find a whole bunch of information, and we learn that maybe we're not alone on this planet, and there's actually other things, and maybe we were sabotaged in the first place and forced to crash land. And this whole other side of the story kind of opens up, and it's kind of a bit of a trope, but it's really fun and interesting, and I like that kind of thing. So I'm really enjoying it, and I can't wait to kind of continue it really and keep scratching at the surface. And I hope that it continues to kind of work in the same way, because they've done a really good job of kind of pacing the story out and giving you enough autonomy of decisions to do while still sticking to the script kind of thing and hitting the key points that are interesting. And yeah, it's actually really good, and it's surprising. Like I say, I picked this game by just randomizing it from my backlog. I don't even know where I got it from. It must have been in a bundle or something that I picked up one day years ago. But I even looked at it on the Steam discussion forum for the game, and the developer has, flat out said they're no longer supporting it because they're working on a newer game. And this was like this is a decently old enough game now, so it doesn't really need support. But there's a couple of things that no matter what you do, you get the same result. I saw people complaining about on the discussion forum, but that's kind of like, that's what you get. It's a little indie kind of project, so there are limitations. But for what it is, I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm kind of keen to see how it wraps up in the end. Similarly to Assassin's Creed Mirage, which I'm still playing, and I've still been playing a lot of. I've been doing a lot of assassinations. I've been taking out a lot of key people because I've been focusing on like main story stuff for the last week and a bit, to the point I think I don't know if it's the final boss, because it never is with Assassin's Creed. You think you've killed the final boss and then there's more. So I'm kind of, the last assassination I did was like a big one. Like it took a lot of time to plan. It took a lot of time to actually perform. And then it took a lot of time to escape. Because it was basically in the very center of the map. There's like a big palace in the middle of Baghdad where as soon as you go in, you're suspicious because it's all very protected and there's lots of guards and things and blah, blah, blah. That is obviously, you know, from the very beginning, that's where you're going to fight your big boss. But it takes time. And of course, once you start that kind of mission where you go into protected zones and stuff and you're stealthing around, taking out guards and stuff, you can't save it mid-mission. You have to kind of complete it before you can leave and then save it. So I was kind of stuck playing it for, I think it was like a good couple of hours that it took me to do the mission. But I kind of take my time and I'm very thorough when I do these things. So you probably do it a lot quicker than I did. But there's lots of cool things. There's like, without giving stuff away, with all of these assassination missions, the idea is you stealth in, find your target and take them out. But there are lots of different ways to do that and things you can do to kind of tweak how that happens. Such as when I got to this big palace kind of area, I kind of, did my scouting and everything and found out what's going on. And there was a group of rebels who were basically at the front gate yelling and banging and, complaining. So I went up and talked to them and they're like, hey, if you can get the gate open, we'll come in and storm the palace and, create a distraction and take care of business. So I'm like, all right, that sounds like a good time. And so I sneak in somewhere else and like make my way through the gardens around the palace and to the front gate where there's like heaps of dudes, like guards on the other side, on the inside. And so I kind of throw a few smoke bombs, go in and take them all out before they even realize I'm there, knock open the gates, and like all these rebels come running in and they start having this big fight. Meanwhile, I kind of disappear and sneak around the other side of the building and on top of it and all this kind of stuff. And it's that kind of stuff. And it feels really good because the way they put it together is actually quite satisfying. And you feel like you're actually achieving something even without it. Like the worst thing they can do with this sort of stuff is make it feel too automated or scripted. As in, like, you have to let the rebels in if you want to get to from point A to point B. But instead, it feels like an option which could either help you or hinder you. Because if you want to be completely stealthy and silent, having a big pack of rebels coming in and fighting everyone is kind of not good. Because suddenly they're ringing alarms, they're getting reinforcements, they've got dudes coming in from other places. And as someone who's trying to hide, you want to know where everyone is all the time. You don't want to have people just showing up randomly to join the fight. So, yeah. So it's cool. I like that, like I've said every time I've talked about it, I like that they've kind of gone back to that kind of style of focusing more on stealth, focusing on assassinations, instead of just, well, like in Odyssey, you literally show up on battlefields and have all-out action-filled battles with the other side, with the enemies. And it's much more of an army versus an army kind of thing, as opposed to stealthing through and taking out a target. So, yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I think I'm almost done. Maybe by the next time we talk, I will be done. Maybe. We shall see.
Maybe.
It's still good, though. I think it's everything I wanted this Assassin's Creed game to be after Valhalla and, hoping they'd shrink it back down again and, do all that. So I'm happy about that. The only other thing I've been playing, which we'll talk more about in a second, is the original Half-Life. I mentioned last time that I have been playing it as well. I've been playing it more, and I've been enjoying it. But we'll get stuck into that in a moment when we hit our topic, which is the game of the month, Half-Life. And as I understand it, Paula, you have not played Half-Life.
I have not played Half-Life. I have no intention of playing it as it is an FPS. I get very, very motion sick with those.
Yeah.
But I did do some investigation mainly on Valve itself.
Well, and I think you're very much aware of why Half-Life is important, I suppose, for want of a better word.
I mean, yes, starting by the fact that it is actually kind of like the first game by Valve, because previously to that, Gabe Newell worked at Microsoft. Kind of the very first thing he was involved in the game was with the port of Doom for Windows 95. After that, he went his own way and eventually founded Valve, and they made their first game that was Half-Life. And it kind of like was aided by the access of the Quake engine by ID Software. But Valve said, hey, I'm going to take this engine and I'm going to make my own engine out of it.
Yeah.
So they eventually, the game came out. It was very, very successful. And that was the start of all the giant we know today.
Yeah. Who knew it would become what it has become?
Yeah, no joking.
Well, and this is why I think, like, even if you haven't played the game, like, Half-Life is a very important game in the history of gaming for a number of reasons. And as someone who was old enough and aware enough to be around when this happened, I remember it being, like, pretty mind-blowing at the time. But I was saying to you, Paula, before we were chatting, before we started recording, that one of the cool things about it being a game of the month is seeing people from a whole lot of different backgrounds experiencing this game for the first time. And that means not necessarily loving it either, because there's a lot about it that's old and dated and done a lot better these days. But yeah, even if it was kind of new and mind-blowing and fresh at the time, even me now playing it, going back to it, there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, whew, yeah, we do that better these days, don't we?
Definitely.
Well, even down, I think I mentioned last week, even down to something as simple as in Half-Life, much like in Doom or Quake, the default is that you run really fast and you hold shift to go slow. Whereas nowadays you walk and you hold shift if you want to run or whatever it is. But you basically have a button to make yourself run instead of having a button to make yourself walk slowly. But back in the day when it was, and Half-Life was a contemporary of Doom and Quake and those sorts of games. And yeah, you're constantly going as fast as you can unless you tell it otherwise. And that can be a little bit difficult when you're trying to do like precision platforming in areas and you're trying to jump onto that one pipe that you're trying to land on, but you keep missing it because you just run really fast and don't even jump. You just kind of fall off and die. And, I can totally understand that's not a lot of fun. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking the thing that really made a big difference with this game, that at least from my perhaps not so reliable memory, I remember at the time that it was such a departure to have like in-game dialogue and quote-unquote cutscenes that just happened in front of you while you're moving around and doing what you want, rather than it like cutting to a pre-rendered movie or something. You just kind of, well, like at the very beginning of the game, you walk into the front doors essentially, and there's a policeman at a reception desk talking to a scientist about something completely unrelated to you, and you kind of interrupt them and he goes, oh, you're here, cool, off you go down there to grab your suit or whatever. But you could either stay and listen to those sorts of conversations, or you could just walk away and miss them completely. And and that kind of stuff was, believe it or not, actually quite innovative at the time, because you think about games like Doom or Quake or whatever, and there's no cutscenes with dialogue and stuff, and there's no rooms that you walk into with NPCs that you don't immediately kill. You actually listen to and kind of get a bit of story from, and maybe they make a joke or something and you go, oh, that's cool. But it's very, it kind of brought in this kind of slow pace or storytelling pace where like the whole first mission of the game is you just walking around, not doing anything. Like you're you go to your locker and you pick up your EVA suit, and you then go down to the testing lab and you talk to the scientists, and they're like, all right, let's do this. And you go into the test chamber and you start doing stuff, and, you know, it's very mundane in a way. And it's a good probably half hour before any action kind of kicks off at the beginning of the game. And, you know, that stuff is really, it might sound kind of weird and stupid by today's standards, but at the time that was like totally new and like, oh my God, I can't believe someone's actually doing this. This is cool. This is so cinematic and stuff, like in a good way. And especially in an FPS, like FPSs were definitely like, you know, your Quakes and Dooms and Wolfensteins and, you know, action, 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 just kill everything you see and gory, 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 blah, blah, blah. But I think what also I've seen people comment on as part of the Game of the Month is interesting things that I don't even think of because it was so common at the time, like even down to health packs and non-regenerating health, where, you know, it wasn't most FPSs back in the day, you had to go pick up a health pack if you wanted to heal yourself or find a health station. Whereas nowadays, pretty much every game, if you wait long enough without getting hurt, your health will just regenerate.
Oh, so in that regard, like today's standards, the game would actually be seen as an FPS survival game in a way because of how you have to maneuver around your health.
Yeah, kind of. It's got way more in common with actual survival games in that sense because you have to find health packs and manage health, even armor as well, like which, you know, extended health. But yeah, it's not just a given that you're going to get better. Like I'm sure anyone of a certain age or experience understands having that save game where you saved and you've only got like 10% health left, and you didn't realize it was just before like a big fight of lots of people. So you go in there with like no health and you have to like take out heaps of dudes and try to win the fight. But if you wanted to actually reload an earlier save, you'd probably have to redo the whole chapter or something, which is just too much. And so half the challenge is managing your health. And like even you might find health packs, but maybe you don't pick them up straight away because you want to know what's around the corner. So you kind of keep them in your head and you'll go fight a bunch of dudes and get hurt, but then you'll backtrack, grab the health packs that you found, heal up, and continue forward kind of thing. So it's a whole different way of thinking about how you approach the game and how you look at survival and that sort of thing.
Yeah. To be honest, I like that approach that older games have sometimes to health and stuff, because it's like, dude, you pretty much took a bullet to the fucking knee. That is not gonna go away with just a kiss and say, hey, get better.
Yeah. You can't just sit in the corner for a while and wait for it.
Yeah. Like if you think about it, like sitting in the corner and not doing anything with the wound will actually make it worse.
Yeah, you think you'd bleed out or something, but
Yeah.
Well, and you know, it's not like it's even necessarily going for realism because there's then funny jokes that come up that would be probably memes these days if it was still in place, such as, you know, when you're playing an old FPS, especially Doom or Half-Life is the same, and you're going through the level and you're like, okay, cool. And then you go into a room and suddenly the room is full of ammo and guns and health packs and everything you need to basically come up to speed. And you're like, okay,
oh, no.
I'm about to fight something really difficult.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
That's when you make a save game and you stock up on everything and then you go through and, like, you know, fight some big enemy that's really tough or new, and, you know, you need all those resources just to survive.
Yeah.
But it's so unrealistic because, like, oh, suddenly you get it just as you need it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of fun in itself as well because, yeah. But the other thing that Half-Life did a lot of, which other games didn't at the time really, was not so much platforming, but more like environmental levels where the challenge was getting around or like overcoming obstacles as opposed to just killing heaps of stuff. And like playing through it myself again, there was some levels I forgot about where one of them is you're literally on a cliff face and there's like tiny little paths to walk along. And there are some enemies around who shoot at you and stuff, but you have to basically hold down shift the whole time so you don't go too fast because otherwise you're just going to fall right off the edge really, really quickly. because it's basically like walking on a tightrope the whole
tightrope.
time. Yeah. And it's actually quite, as someone who doesn't like heights very much, even as an old game, the way they've built it actually made me feel a bit uneasy because you're standing right on the edge of this really tall cliff and the view is a JPEG, but it's of like a wider kind of desert scene that seems way, way down low from where you are, and yeah, it kind of makes you feel a bit sick. But and then you're like climbing ladders and stuff, and yeah, it's interesting. And there are other levels as well where other things hurt you. Say, like there's one part in one level where you have to go through essentially a freezer, like a big industrial freezer, and so, but it's so cold that it actually hurts you. So you're kind of on a timer. So as soon as you go in there, you start getting hurt. And yeah, you have to kind of go through as quick as you can. And there's even a bit of a puzzle that you have to solve to try and get out of there, because you've got to like move a platform so that you can then use it to climb across a gap and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But, or there's like rooms where there's electrical wires hanging down that kill you as soon as you touch them. So you've got to backtrack a bit and go down that other corridor to find the power generator and turn it off, and then come back and you'll actually be able to get through and not get electrocuted. And so, you know, there's that kind of stuff in there as well, which games later on, like BioShock and things, used very much those sorts of environmental things, even down to being electrocuting enemies in the water and that sort of stuff. But at the time, again, like that was all new and fresh, and, you know, nobody did that kind of thing in other FPSs at the time. And I think even though it is very much an old game that has dated, and, you know, Half-Life 2 even is another order of magnitude better, I think, than Half-Life. But even then, I'm sure that's kind of dated a bit as well by now. I haven't played it for a while, but it's probably got a few cobwebs hanging around. But I think much like playing Fear, when we did that, I think in October, which is kind of the same era, as in it's got a lot of the same issues, but it also did its thing differently, and it showed some improvements, and there's a reason it's a classic, and you can kind of see why. Half-Life is kind of the same. Like, if you look at it as if you're looking at it at the time and compare it to like Quake and Doom and those sorts of games, you can start to see why it is different and why it is actually pretty innovative and impressive. Even though, you know, now 25 years later, it's looking a bit long in the teeth, but it can be a bit difficult in parts and a bit frustrating. But yeah, it's a classic for a reason, and I'm glad that it is Game of the Month now, because I think it's worth doing. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm interested to see how everyone goes as they finish playing it. The other thing that, just as a, you know, old game spoiler, if anyone wants to block their ears, towards the end of the game, you basically end up going to an alien world through portals and stuff. And it's widely known as the shittest part of the game, because because there's like really low gravity, but you have to do some like platforming, jumping from platform to platform, but they're really far apart because of the low gravity. So you have to just kind of jump and go for it and hope that you land in the right spot. And because it's like trying to be all alien worldy, the geometry doesn't quite make sense and the level design doesn't quite make sense.
They're very nice.
But then it does something which is very old school, where you end the game with a massive, weird boss fight. So, yeah, again, block your ears if you're worried about spoilers for a 25-year-old game, because I'm just going to talk about it. But basically, at the end of the game, to put it as simply as possible, you fight a giant floating baby.
Oh, wait, I heard about this one. That's where the meme came from then.
I'm sure you can Google screenshots and stuff, but it kind of doesn't make sense, but it's very normal for the time, you know?
Yeah.
So you get to this event, you get to this place where there is, well, you fight a sub-boss first, who makes more sense because it's this like alien spider thing, and you fight that, but then you get to the real boss, which is this literally huge, giant floating baby who like spawns regular enemies as well as you fight them. And it's basically a fight of attrition where you have to try and stay alive long enough and do enough damage to eventually kill them. And it's very old school in that sense. Like, that's one thing they didn't let go of. It's kind of like at the end, it reminds me of the boss of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which came out a bit later. And so it's not like the original Wolfenstein, but again, in that one, there's like a big floating Nazi that you have to fight, much like the big floating baby in Half-Life. But that's very old school game design. Like, you play through the game, you get to the very last level, and the big finish is a massive boss that basically you have to spend everything you've got on, and even then you might not win. Like in Wolfenstein 3D, you eventually fought Hitler, and it was this big Hitler mech kind of boss that was nearly impossible to fight on the hardest level. You know, in Doom, you end up fighting massive demons, and I forget their actual names in the game, but the big horn demons dudes who fire missiles at you and stuff. And yeah, it's just over the top and a huge kind of like, oh, we have to do something massive at the end. I don't know why they went with Big Baby, but they did. I'm sure there's some kind of lore theories and stuff behind it, because like the other thing Half-Life...
There's always some lore theories.
Well,
there's always some cracked up theories.
And I don't know what those are. But like, one of the classic things in Half-Life is the G-Man, which you may or may not have heard of. But essentially there's a character who was in the very first game who's never mentioned or directly referred to, but of all the NPCs and everything, every now and then you'll see this dude who's just a man in a suit who looks like an FBI kind of guy or a Secret Service kind of guy. And it'll be as simple as you'll be in a part of the facility shooting aliens and stuff and, you know, mopping up and things and just working your way through the facility. And you'll see him in like through a window in a room over there, just kind of watching you. And then when you get to that part of the map, he's gone. Or like,
well, that's upsetting.
And this is in the first game. In the second game, he plays a much bigger role, which I won't spoil, even though, you know, everyone knows about it anyway. But he was just in the game, essentially, in Half-Life, and he shows up every now and then. You just see this guy in a suit who just seems to be observing everything that's happening. And it's basically the whole facility's this big secret facility that everything's exploding and going to shit. And there's aliens warping in and attacking you. And they've obviously been doing experiments on things, and it's like this full Black Ops kind of project. So it's this big conspiracy theory government facility that you're in. And yeah, there's this suited guy called the G-Man who you just see every now and then, who's just kind of watching what you do. And it goes into this whole fan theory kind of lore thing about the whole thing was kind of set up by the government, and your character, Gordon Freeman, is like, you were put in there as like a test, even though you kind of go in and everything goes to shit and you manage to survive and all this kind of stuff. There's a theory that, you know, you were actually a plant and you don't know it yourself, but you're put in there as a test subject. And that's why they're kind of watching you do stuff and not really interfering. But then later in the game, again, another spoiler, but whatever, if you played it, you played it. The army show up to kind of, and everyone's like, oh, yay, the army's here to help us and protect us. But no, they're here to kill everybody and basically silence the whole project. And, you know, they kill scientists and they kill aliens just the same, and they try and kill you. And yeah, it's this whole kind of layered story that goes on behind it, which is all told while you're playing the game as well. It's not like, here's a cutscene to give you a lore dump. It's no, you walk into a room and you hear the army dudes chatting with each other going, oh, we haven't found Freeman yet, but we'll get him next time and blah, blah, blah. So you know that they're not your friend. And then when you go around the corner and they see you, they all start shooting at you. So you're like, okay, I better kill you now. And yeah, or you walk into a room and you see them like gunning down innocent civilian scientists. And you're like, okay, these guys are perhaps not my friend. And, you know, you start to learn the story that way. And I really like that because it's very much a show, don't tell kind of way of storytelling, which I'm sure plenty of people have heard that expression before, where it's better just to let you experience the story as opposed to telling you, well, this is what's happening right now and blah, 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 blah. And I think that's kind of this departure of away from like big rendered cutscenes to the whole in-game environmental kind of storytelling that really makes this game stand out and makes it special. And yeah, the G-Man is kind of one of those things where you see him around and there's no explanation. He just kind of shows up. even in the most random places where no one else has survived, he's just there kind of watching you going, oh, yeah?
He's just there silently judging.
Yeah, and then he'll just kind of walk away with his briefcase and, disappear. And he never seems to be any danger or anything as well, whereas everyone else is running around screaming their heads off. So, it's a very interesting way to tell a story, and I think one worth experiencing at some point. So, yeah, that's basically my take on Half-Life.
And I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. If I can totally see how FPSs can make people motion sick and that kind of thing, and even watching it, like I find watching YouTube videos of FPSs often makes me feel motion sick because I'm not controlling it.
And you're not controlling it, and probably like the other person's settings and way of playing is different to yours. Like,
Yeah,
I cannot watch my boyfriend playing like Minecraft for the life of me because holy crap, that is a barfest.
yeah. Well, even when I was at my sister's, just to digress, I wanted to show her what's it called? The Edith Finch game. What Happened to Edith Finch? Have you played that?
I haven't, but it has been recommended to me a lot.
It is an FPS though, so fair warning. I loaded it up on her PlayStation and I was just showing it to her because she's new to gaming, she hasn't played anything like that before, where it's very much a heavy story game and there's nothing else to it kind of thing.
Yep.
And I personally think What Happened to Edith Finch is brilliant. I'm one of those fanboys for that game. But
isn't that one of the games made by the same studio that Papers, Please?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's the same mob who did Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
Oh no, I'm confusing it with Return to the Obra Dinn. So
okay,
never mind.
It's a very different game to Papers, Please. So
it's a very different game.
I'd be surprised, but a very good game nonetheless. But I was showing my sister, and after like 10 minutes, she just could not look at the screen anymore because she was literally about to throw up. And I was trying to be really smooth in my movements and really slow and careful and, make it as comfortable as possible. But no, she couldn't handle it. So we had to stop playing because she just, felt sick way too quick. So I don't recommend you play that if you do suffer from motion sickness, but it's a shame because it's a fucking awesome game.
Yeah, I heard about that. It makes me sad though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all FPS, even though it kind of is, but it's hard to explain. Like, it changes kind of gameplay throughout the game. So, because you get lots of different vignettes about different people, so each person has its own little gameplay section, and it changes it up a bit each time. But that's not to say you wouldn't get sick. Anyway, let us move on to our guessing game. The aim of the game is to guess the game. Paula, you're going to make me use my brain way too much, but let's do it.
Okay, so the game that I have here is, on average, 8 hours for the main story.
8 hours.
And the first comment that I have here is, where the hell is it? Where the fuck are you?
Can't find it. 3 points automatically. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying not to get names mixed into this. Normal playthrough, everyone survived. And this is a 9-hour playthrough.
Normal playthrough, everyone survived. So I'm thinking, 9 hours to, I want to say like an Until Dawn?
It is.
Hey, I get one right away. I'm so happy. Yeah, everyone survived.
I thought I would give it away, so...
Well, that's where it's like, yeah. It's like ones that you've said where that did give it away because I haven't played heaps of games where people have had to survive. So...
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so chuffed. I can't. Oh. I always hope for a quick one that I'll get it immediately, but it's never happened till now.
It just happened. Oh my god, this is gonna be a close one.
I am a genius, yes. So yeah, we're now even 16-16.
Do you have 1 or 2 rounds left?
I think maybe
Like,
2. This is episode 18, and we're going to stop at 20,
yeah,
aren't
it
we?
is. Yeah.
So yeah, so there'll be another 2 episodes, and then we'll be done. So potentially it could be 22 hours maximum that we're looking at.
Wait, no, 19 hours maximum because it's one
Oh, one each, yeah.
player. Yeah.
So yeah, it would be 19 most. Well, that's good. That's a good amount of time, I think.
Yeah, unless we tie, and then we have to do a tiebreaker.
Well, but maybe that can just be a tiebreaker for who wins without any extra points.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. Because yeah, we don't want something that's going to take forever to play. So, but yeah, awesome. I think that pretty much does us for this episode. So thank you everyone for listening. As always, please hit us up with any comments or queries you may have, especially if you got your opinions on Half-Life or any of the itchmas games. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about that as well, or anything else that we've talked about. Always feel free to hit us up wherever you can. But yeah, thanks for listening, and see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.